Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. Today I'm going to be doing a playthrough of one single mission in the game Interceptor Ace Volume 2, The Last Days of the Luftwaffe, 1944 to 45. This game is published by Compass Games and designed by Fernando Sola Ramos, and is a sequel to the Interceptor Ace game that came out a couple years back, also from Compass, that was designed by Gregory Smith. It's in the same family as Night Fighter Ace and obviously his other sub-base games, Silent Victory, The Hunters, The Hunted, etc., American Tank Ace. All of them are kind of in the same family of solitaire narrative style games. This one in particular picks up where the first game left off. So the original game covered the period of 1943 and the first couple months of 44. This one picks up from there and goes through the end of the war in 45. These were very dark days for the Luftwaffe. The P-51 had been introduced, and that gave the U.S. 8th Air Force basically the ability to provide fighter cover deep into Germany, and even into like Poland and Czechoslovakia and so on and so forth. So a great range on those P-51s, especially with drop tanks, provided them with the ability to basically cover the B-17s all the way to the targets, even in Berlin. So the interceptors on the German side, their mission was to take on these daylight bombing raids by the U.S. 8th Air Force, and they had their work cut out for them, especially when they had to deal with the escorting Mustangs and P-47s and so on and so forth. So this game is a challenge. You will die frequently. You will get shot down frequently, and perhaps you'll live, but you might not make it. Let's put it that way. It does have a lot of interesting twists that were added to kind of cover the situation that was faced by the Germans in the very late war period, such as green pilots and inability to produce the aircraft at the numbers they needed. Typically you would fly 8 missions in a month. There are some aircraft that you can only fly in 4 missions a month. Some of the aircraft are very interesting. They are the Wunderwaffen aircraft that the Germans introduced late in the war, such as the famous Me-262 Schwalbe and the HE-1 or ME. I keep wanting to say Heinkel, but it was a Messerschmitt 163 Comet, which was a rocket interceptor. And there are some interesting mechanics with that, but I'm not going to get into that. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to play a historical mission. So at the back of the rule book here, they have historical missions that you are able to play. I am going to play one of them because I think it's a good example of what the game has to offer. So it is here on page 36 of the rule book, and it is Defend Oranienburg Airfield. And it says, on April 10th, 1945, a force of 1,300 heavy bombers targeted airfields thought to be jet bases. Approximately 50 Me-262s rose to intercept the bombers using tactics that involved an attack by 1 or 2 aircraft, mostly aimed at stragglers or outer elements of the formation. The jets had their most successful day against the 8th Air Force's heavies, but this was not without cost to the Luftwaffe. 20 Me-262s were claimed as destroyed on this day. The date is April 10th, 1945. We will be flying the Me-262A-1B, which is the advanced version, the last version that fought in the war. The unit is JV-44. This was Adolf Gallen's Experten squadron. And the base we'll be flying out of is Brandenburg-Brest, which is a Berlin base. The target is Oranienburg Airfield, which is in the Berlin zone. The enemy is comprised of a B-17G formation with a P-51D escort. Special rules: no fighter-bomber attacks on the takeoff box. First encounters a straggler in the Berlin endurance box. No R-4M attacks may be made against a straggler. If the bomber is shot down, you intercept the main bomber formation in that same endurance box head on. Okay, this is, generally speaking, the look I will be providing for this playthrough. We won't be using things like the pilot mat, or some of the charts that you would use to kind of determine the raid and all that, because that's known. And this is a single one-off mission. So our pilot is a member of the Experten, but he is not specifically named. So this is our aircraft mat. You can see we have our base zone is in Berlin. Brandis is our air base. JV-44 is our squadron. Here's the ME-262A1B. It is currently in the hangar box. When we take off, we're going to take off here in the Berlin bases. You can see the target, the endurance track is what this is called, and the zones you'll fly through. And we're going to try to intercept here before the bombers drop their bombs. That's what the bomb symbols indicate. This would be a flak symbol. And then if you get to the gray, that's where you get out of range for the ME-262. Each aircraft has its own mat, so it'll have different mix here of where the gray boxes appear and so on and so forth. So you're going to basically progress through this and land. Down here's our damage track, our weapon suite, our skill usage, our wingman status. I'm going to use no skills, which will make this more difficult for me, but we're going to pretend that I'm somehow an expert but I'm a rookie expert, I guess. Rookie expert. Here's our pilot status. If we get a wound, it'll go here. And again, here's the damage down here. Now here's the B-17 and B-24 damage track. We will ignore this side. We're just going to play the B-17 side. On the flip side of this is the fighter track, and the P-51D is on there. So if we do, or I should say when we do end up tangling with escorts, we will flip this over and use that to tangle out to and handle our dogfight. The game comes with 5 dice, 2d6, a d20, 2d10, white and black, so that you can assign one to be the 10 and one to be the 0 kind of thing. I'm sure you're all familiar with this stuff. Up here we have our cards. Combat is done via cards. If you're not familiar with this series, some of this stuff will be new to you, but if you are familiar with Night Fighter Ace or Interceptor Ace, this game plays pretty much the same way. There are a couple of new wrinkles that were added just to kind of, handle some of the interesting aspects of this particular era of the war, when the Germans had some weapons that had not been seen before, basically. Here's our sequence of play. Roll for raid target and weather. We don't really need to do that, although I guess we could roll for the weather. But this is a historical mission, so I'm going to assume good weather and not worry about it. Move interceptor from hangar to takeoff box, so we'll do that here in a moment. We can skip number 3, and then we're going to move to the endurance box, and we don't have to worry about fighter sweeps either, I don't think. We don't have to roll for some of the things like interception and so on and so forth. Well, we do, but we don't have to roll for the raid isn't encountered or whatever. So basically what we're going to do is we are going to take our fighter here, and he's going to go to the takeoff box. And then we don't have to worry about fighter bombers attacking our airfield, so we're just going to go right to the Berlin endurance box. And now in the Berlin endurance box is where we're going to encounter our straggler per the rules. Okay, so here on our B-17 target chart, down here you have the range to the bombers, right? And then there's a B-17 in formation, and over here we have interceptor, B-24, B-17 out of formation. So we're going to be using this side, which is the less damaging side, because this first bomber is not in formation. The combat box that the B-17s flew in was very dangerous and perilous for the interceptors, and this particular bomber, this first one, is not in that combat box. So he is a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit less powerful because he's alone. Normally we would roll on our interception chart, so I'm going to do it anyway. But if we get the fighter, if we get 2, 3, 10, or 12, we're not going to go with that because it says we're supposed to meet the bomber, and so we got a 4, and that's head on. So that works. So we're going to get our straggler here. I put the chit out for it, so that's a B-17G. And here is our ME-262 counter. And we're going to put that on here at long range. Now at long range we get -1 random hit. That's for us and the bomber. Combat is considered to be simultaneous. So I'm going to draw a card for us. And now you're supposed to say what you're shooting at. I'm going to target the airframe. Okay. And we have 20 firepower. So I'm going to pull one ammo off of both. So this one, the Mark 108 30 millimeter, 3 centimeter. Has 3 rounds of ammo, as you can see, and this one has 4. So now that's 2 and that's 1, and I'm not using my rockets because it says I can't. So that's a firepower of 20. So we look at our card, and you have to go to the one that's lower than or equal to what you have. So we can't use this, we get this, which is group. And so when you get group, you get group damage here. So you look at what it gives you here. So it gets 1 controls, 1 airframe, 1 gunner, and 2 random. Now the 2 random becomes 1 random. So we are going to take some damage markers. And we have 1 to the control surfaces, 1 to the airframe, 1 to the gunner, who gets a number because this will impact how they fire back. Now this 1 doesn't take effect until the second round because, again, combat is simultaneous. So this card goes away. Now I'll roll 2d10, or 1d10 in this case, because we lose 1 random hit on here for our aim at airframe, and that'll tell us what else we hit, and it could end up being nothing. So we get a 9. So a 9 is the starboard engine, and you always start with a die roll to determine if it's inboard or outboard. So we will roll 1 die. A 1 is inboard, so I take a damaged chit and I go to the starboard engine, inboard. And that's how you do combat. From your side, now we draw another card for the bomber, and they use the bottom area here, and it says 2 hits. Okay, so 2 hits. Put that down. Now, because of the range, they actually lose 1 random hit. So we're going to roll 1 die, and we are rolling, actually we're rolling for 1 hit, not 1 die. So we're going to roll both. Black will be the 10s, and this will be the 1s. And we get a 32, and if we look at our chart, 32 is minor damage. So minor damage is no effect. Minor damage, no effect. So no effect, which is great for us, not so great for them. So now the range closes to medium. Now if he was in formation, he'd get a random hit here, but he's not. So again, we have 20. I'm going to flip this and pull 1 more off. Okay. So again, we're at 20. Again, we get group damage. So same thing as before. So again, we get 1 control, 1 airframe, 1 gunner, and 2 random. And this time it is 2 random. Now I did not specify airframe, but I am doing the same thing. So I should have specified that. So now we have, this becomes 2. So he's now going to have he's going to have 1 this time. So now we roll for our 2 random hits, and this time there are 2 random hits. And we get a 2 and a 9. So the 2 is the airframe, and the 9 is the starboard engine again. So let's roll to see which starboard engine. And we know the airframe took another hit. So it is 5, so that time it's the outboard. So both starboard engines now have 1 damage. And now he gets to pull a card for his attack. Defensive fire, 3 hits. Okay, but he loses 1 because he has a -1 from before. So now next time it'll be 2, but we have to roll for our 2 hits. So we're going to roll, and we get a 44. The 44 is, I don't have this. This is not on my aircraft, I believe. Yeah, it is not. So that's a no damage. If you don't have it, it's a no damage. And a 25. And the 25 is the port engine. We only have 1 engine, so it's just engine. We get a damage chit, and we put it on the... Oh, we do have an engine. Because this, for some reason, I had BF-109 in my head. This is a frickin' 262. So we do have a port engine. So that's not good. All right, so now we go to close range, and both us and the bomber will get one random hit in addition to whatever we pull. So now would be a good time for me to use my wingman, because we need to shoot this bomber down, or we can't attack the main bomber group, and we will have to deal with the interceptors, or the escorts rather, first. Okay, so I get to do my attack first, and then we do the wingman attack if we need to. So maybe I shoot him down. If I get 2 more hits on the airframe, he'll go down. So we're going to go for this here. All right. Again, we're using our ammo, so this is going to be just 1 cannon ammo left, and then we're going to have rockets that we'll have to use against the bombers, hopefully. So we only have, well, that was our last ammo. So it's still 20, and we get a DE, and DE means destroyed. So this bomber has been shot down. We get a kill. Now I do have to still do his combat as well. So I'm going to do that, or his fire rather. Okay, but we have shot him down. Now he gets 3 hits plus 1, and then minus 2. So that's going to be 2 hits. All right, so let's roll our 2d6 here. So he has 2 hits. We get a 23. 23 is starboard engine. So that's the starboard right there next to the port, of course. And then we get a 36. 36 is controls. And that's it. I almost said sank. We shot down the B-17G, so he has been destroyed, and now we're going to go after the group. Okay, so I'm going to remove these markers, and I'm going to push this back there, because this time we get to use our R4M rocket. So here's our special weapons R4M rocket. We roll 2d6. A 2 or 3 is a miss. A 4 or 5 is 1 random airframe hit. A 6 to 8 is 2 random airframe hits. 9, 10, 1 random wing hit. 11, 12 is a miss. So we're going to roll 2 dice. And we get a 4. And a 4 is 1 random airframe hit. All right, so we're going to put a damaged on our airframe. Now they can't fire at us at that range. So we're going to move in. And now we are at long range. And this is a formation now. So they will be using this side. Okay. So they lose both us and, well, actually no, we don't get, there is no -1 random hit for long range when you're attacking a B-17 formation. All right, so we are going to use our rockets are gone, so we're going to use our cannons now. We only have one round, and then we're going to disengage because we're going to be out of ammo here. So I'm going to have my wingman roll as well, so you can see a wingman attack too. So we're going to pull our card. Our firepower is 10. So we're in the 8 column. We get 4 hits. Okay, 4 hits, and then -1 will give us 3 hits. So we have 3 hits, and we're against the airframe. So we're aiming at the airframe here. So we're going to roll 3. I'll roll 2 together, and we get a 10 and a 5. So 5 is control, 10 is bomb bay. Bomb bay is big because when you hit the bomb bay, well, let me damage the controls first, and then we'll talk about the bomb bay. So our control surfaces are damaged now. Okay, now the bomb bay requires us to look at another chart. Here we have a bomb bay hit in the first 2 endurance boxes, requires a 2d6 dice roll, 2 to 6 no effect airframe hit, 7, 12 explosion. So we're looking for a 7 to 12 here. If we roll high, and we got a 7, we did get a 7. So that means that an explosion, that is our 2nd kill. That's pretty good. 2 kills on one mission is pretty good. So we're done with that was our last ammo. We are out of ammo. Now he's going to take his shots because he gets to fire before he gets destroyed. And he gets 2 hits, and they don't get a minus because it's in the formation. So we just roll for 2 hits here. So first one is a 14, and a 14 is the radio. Okay, and then we roll again. 45. 45 is the starboard wing. Okay, so we're banged up, but we're not dead. The wingman, I was going to use his attack. So let's just say that the wingman is attacking. Okay, so we can see the wingman attack chart. Okay, so here's our wingman attack on bomber. So we're going to roll this, and we're going to see what happens here. 2d6. And we get a 9. A 9. Bomber takes 4 random hits, and the wingman is damaged. So the wingman goes to the damaged box, and we get 4 random hits on the bomber. So we'll roll for those, because if all 4 ended up being airframe, that would actually shoot it down. So we will roll for this. So again, here's the rolls. So he's got 4 hits. He gets a 3 and a 1. So a 1 is airframe, and a 3 is airframe and gunner. So that's going to be 2 on the airframe. I won't mark the gunner because he doesn't really matter for this. And now we'll roll 2 more. If I get 2 more airframe hits, the wingman gets a kill. It's 8 and 1. So we got 3. Actually, we needed 5 hits, so forget it. I can't read. So we got the port engine, and we got another airframe hit. So that would have been how the wingman would attack, and then he's damaged. And there's an optional rule for fatigue, that you basically you lose a fatigue point for asking him to attack the bomber, and then you use another fatigue point because he got damaged doing it. So that's it. So now we have to try to disengage. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that I have to do the P-51D. I'm a little unsure, but normally after you take on the bombers, you have to take on the escort. So here's the P-51D. Okay. So we would put this mat out, and we also have the P-38J and L, the P-47D, and the Spitfire Mark 14 as well. So we would fight them, and then they obviously also can take damage and everything, and there's initiative. And if you've played the first game, this works pretty much exactly the same way. So you would have, basically you would put your P-51 here like that, and then your ME-262 like this, because they start disadvantaged because they're coming out of attacking the bombers. Okay, and then my first action in this would be to try to disengage. So here is our enemy disengagement chart. So you see we have a jet. So we roll a d6. 1 to 5 is disengagement. A 6 is combat continues. So if we just roll 1d6, and watch me roll a 6 here. No, it's a 2. So that would be disengagement. He goes straight to landing. And then and then we have to roll for landing. But landing, he has some damage. Okay. So you get a +1 for the controls being hit. Okay, so he's got controls, radio, both engines, and 1 wing. Okay, so we don't have any engines out. Nobody's wounded. We don't have a damaged landing gear. I think the only thing we have is the controls being hit. So we roll 2d6. If I roll a 12, I'll get a rough landing and have a light wound. And we rolled a 7, so that's going to be a safe landing. 7 becomes an 8. It's still a safe landing. The mission's over. We live to fly another day. We shot down 2 bombers. So that would be a victory for me, at least in my opinion, for that historical mission. Like I said, the game comes with a handful of historical missions. It also comes with a bunch of historical Luftwaffe aces that you can play a campaign as. It tells you when they started. So if you wanted to play as Adolf Galland, you could. And there are a few other guys as well who were, some of them were jet aces. Some of them flew the 109 or the Focke-Wulf. So you get some options there. So if you like narrative games, this game is awesome. If you like the first game, you'll love this one too. It's tougher. It's tougher than the first game, but I think the thing I'm most excited about, assuming I ever have time to do it, is that I could start a career in Interceptor Ace in 1943 and play through that, and assuming I survive, crank it, turn it over right into this game and continue it, and maybe make it all the way up to being a major or an oberst, which is a colonel, and get into the jets, get into the 262, or maybe even the ME 163. That would be kind of fun to fly the Comet. So yeah, I would say I recommend this game if you like narrative games. If you don't like narrative games, you feel like, oh, I don't want to roll dice over and over again. There is a lot of die rolling. There are also cards. I think the cards are a good alternative to dice. It removes some of those die rolls. It removes having to look things up on a CRT or anything like that. Doing math in your head. It's real easy. You find how much firepower you have. You look at the column, and that tells you how many hits you got. Real simple, really easy. Compared to some of the narrative type games, this one has less rolling than some. But thematically, outstanding. Really, really thematically strong. This is a difficult game. It's going to be hard to survive. The Mustangs are tough. Attacking the B-17 groups are tough, especially when you also have to contend with escorts. In the first game, there were times when there would be no escort. This time, there's always an escort. And this time, they can also attack your base while you're taking off. And they'll be doing fighter sweeps where you might not even get to the bomber stream because you have to tangle with Mustangs or Lightning or Thunderbolts or Spitfires. It's grueling is what it is. So if you really like a challenge, I would say this is the game for you. So yeah, if you're into the narrative stuff, this is a great choice. Congratulations to Fernando Sola Ramos on a really solid game. He if you read the designer notes, he talks about how he kind of came up with this as a variant when he was playing Interceptor Ace, and he refined it and did a lot of research and everything, and he showed it to Gregory Smith, and Gregory Smith was like, you know what, that's probably publishable, and put him in touch with John Krantz, and Compass got the ball rolling, and it turned out to be a game, and it's actually a good game. So kudos all around to everyone involved in the project, and yeah, I enjoy this one. So that is going to do it. As always, I will ask you to please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. I would greatly appreciate your support from my channel as I continue to try to grow it. But if not, I hope you at least enjoyed the video, and will come back and check out future episodes of Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. As I just mentioned, this is the Hexed Encountered channel. And until next time, happy gaming.